Hello and good afternoon. I'm Robert Schoenberger, Editor-in-Chief of IndustryWeek, and welcome to Production Pulse, our bi-weekly live stream where we talk to newsmakers about things going on in the manufacturing world. Today we're talking about the ongoing UAW strike, and joining me are Lynn Vincent, who is a professor at Syracuse University who studies organizational issues and the labor movement, and Dave Green, who is director of UAW Region 2B, covering most of Indiana and Ohio. And Dave was the former president of the UAW local representing the Lordstown, Ohio plant for General Motors that closed a couple years ago. Welcome, Lynn and Dave.
Thank you for having me.
Yep, thanks for having us, Rob.
So we're 2 weeks into the strike now. Sean Fain, the president of the UAW, is expected to address membership tomorrow. I think he's scheduled that live stream for 10 a.m. on Facebook, where he'll update people where negotiations are and whether or not any kind of escalation is needed. Right now, the union is striking 3 manufacturing plants and I think 38 distribution centers across the country. So obviously, there's room to expand that to more manufacturing plants and more secondary facilities. So this speaks to some changes in how the UAW has approached things. One, negotiating with all 3 companies simultaneously instead of picking a target and then trying to use that as a pattern. Dave, if we can start with you, just what's your take on this strategy, the different approach this year to working with the companies to get a resolution and get a contract that you can bring to your membership?
Yeah, well, for me, Robert, it's been refreshing to see something different. I think we've got a good strategy in place, and we're trying to work with the companies as best we can. We want to be back at work. Our members want to be back on the floor, working, building parts, building cars and trucks. But unfortunately, we haven't gotten to where we need to be yet. And so at this point, we're still working at the table.
And Lynn, your take on the different approach this year, the lack of the pattern bargaining, instead striking against all 3 companies at the same time. Do you think this different approach is going to get a significantly different result for the union in this set of negotiations?
The outcomes are affected by so many different factors. We can't predict the outcome. However, I think from a strategic perspective, this is a fascinating approach and has the potential for being extremely successful. It creates a lot of uncertainty, which shifts power to the unions and reduces the ability for the organizations to strategize. It also communicates that the union has a strategy. They are prepared and are ready to enact this. But it also highlights their values. From the beginning, they've said, as David just said, they love their jobs. They don't want to harm the organizations. They just want a fair allocation of the resources. So this stand-up strike is consistent with that. And I think it's a really good message.
Yeah, this year's strike is getting a lot of attention. Obviously, you take this many auto plants offline, you're going to get attention in the business world, but it's also gotten a lot of attention outside of there. There was a major issue last night in the Republican debate. Donald Trump was speaking in Michigan yesterday about bringing up some of the strike issues. Dave, you were just featured in a video that the UAW released where you brought up some statements that the former president made a few years ago about the Lordstown plant and how people should stick to what's going on there. Do you think the extra attention is helping, hurting? Is it a surprise to you at all, seeing how much how much attention the world is paying to this right now?
Yeah, I guess it's not really a surprise. I try to keep the politics out, as best I can with regards to our strike and our members. I think it's just outside noise that can only divide our membership up. Obviously, I'm not a huge fan of former President Trump, as he personally attacked me in a tweet. In 2019, I wrote the guy a couple letters for support when we were closing, and never even got a standard "got your letter" crickets from former President Trump. So, not a big fan over there, obviously, but I think all that political noise is not necessarily helpful for our members going through this personal struggle right now.
So some of the big issues here have been economic. I mean, the ability to push for significant pay increases for membership has been a major issue. It sounds like from day one, well before the strike began, when the negotiations began, we've heard numbers in the 30 and the 40% range for the amount. We'll see what finally gets negotiated over the next several weeks, hopefully. Looking at the importance of getting a big win here, obviously there's the current membership, but when you look forward to other companies, Elon Musk over at Tesla just yesterday said that this contract would bankrupt the big three. But if the UAW is not able to get a win here, what kind of argument can you make to Tesla workers that they should join the union in Texas or California where they have plants?
Right. So, we give workers a voice in the workplace, and part of it is economics. Absolutely. I mean, the big three have had $22 billion in stock buybacks alone over the last decade. So it's not that they don't have the money. It's that they want to hold it to themselves, give it to the other shareholders, when obviously our members are stakeholders in this as well. And for the folks at Tesla, Toyota, Honda, people who are working anywhere, right, and don't have a voice in the workplace, hopefully they'll recognize how important that voice is. They should have a voice, and we obviously want to give them an opportunity to use their voice at their work site.
And Lynn, same question to you. The idea that there isn't just one audience here. This isn't just the current membership. This is also any future membership. Do you think? Do you have a number in mind? Is there a range that the UAW needs to deliver to its current members to really have some success recruiting outside of Detroit, outside of Ford, GM, and Stellantis?
I don't have a number, but I know that workers from even outside the automotive industry are watching this strike and seeing repercussions. Workers across industries are facing different threats. So we saw it with the Hollywood writers, they're facing a threat from AI. Automotive industry has new threats with electric vehicles. So what is happening here with the UAW is similar to what's happening across other industries. So all eyes are here.
The labor movement's had a very strong couple of years here, with last year organizing at Amazon, organizing at Starbucks. You mentioned the Hollywood actors and the writers and some of their successful movements this year. What's going on with the larger labor movement? Why is this happening right now?
Oh man, it is. There are so many factors that have been building up to this. There are social justice issues, there are economic issues, there's a different political environment. And I think one of the most critical factors is that public support for unions is increasing.
Right, and that hadn't been the case. That's really been a flip in the past 18, 24 months, that public opinion polling showing a lot of support for the union positions and for unionization in general. Dave, same question to you. Do you think there's something going on in the larger economy that's really driving this right now?
Yeah, I think a piece of it is, related to COVID. I mean, I hate to blame COVID on everything, but it gave people an opportunity to sit at home for a little while and realize that, hey, man, I'm running around in this hamster wheel just to pay more bills every day, and there's really no work-life balance in my life. And let's face it, life is extremely important. Human life is extremely important and valuable, and so people need to have an opportunity to live a life and not just work their entire lives. And I think people are starting to wake up and recognize that. 15 bucks an hour to work your entire life isn't feasible. It's not good for our economy. Consumer spending is based 70% of our economy, right? And so making sure people have a good living wage where they can have some work-life balance is extremely important, not just to our members, but I think to the general public as well.
Now, one of the big changes this year really came about last year, which was the election of the UAW's leadership. Shawn Fain was the first president of the UAW in recent history to be directly elected by the membership instead of by councils. You were elected from a direct membership vote as well. How much do you think that's affecting, what's going on right now with negotiations and going on with the strike versus if it had still been up to the, I guess the old way of bringing in top leadership to the union?
Yeah, well, I think it's huge, right? And if you haven't noticed a change in the organization, you must have blinders on, because there's been an extremely large amount of transparency. We're trying to share with our members regularly what's happening in these contract talks. We're not going to force these contracts down anybody's throats. We want to make sure they have an opportunity to look at them, sleep on them, and make it's the members' contracts, right? And we work for the members. I think somewhere along the line, the organization kind of lost that philosophy, and I think we've regained that now. And we just got to make sure our members understand that our job is to work for them. And once they actually realize that, I think it's going to only make us a stronger organization from the ground up.
I've written about every set of contract talks since 2003. And so earlier this year, when the UAW authorized the strike, a lot of people, oh, wow, is this newsworthy? That happens every 4 years. I mean, there's always that strike authorization that goes in. But where things really started deviating is when we got up a few weeks before the expiration, September 14th, when Shawn Fain said, we are not going to extend this. We are going to go on strike if we don't have progress or contract by this time. I can't remember any time, letting that first deadline expire and then going immediately into some sort of strike action versus just signing a short-term deal, keep going on under the old contract. Do you think that sent a message? Do you think that was an important factor in what's going on right now?
Not only an important factor, Robert, but it's essential for our members, right? Because they know the deadline. They know when their contracts expire, and they don't like these extensions that just drags this whole process out longer. The company's had plenty of time to look at our demands and come to the table and work with us. And the fact that they in the past have really kind of put it off with the one target would focus, and then everybody else would kind of sit on the sidelines. Now we want them all working, and it's contracts with all three companies, so we want to make sure all three companies are at the table. We're getting the best deal we can for our members.
Professor Vincent, the same basic question to you, just looking at the organizational structures that we're looking at now, the changes in the union management and the changes in the company management. Do you think there's an opportunity here for a different sort of relationship going forward between the union and the automakers once we're through this strike?
Once we're through the strike?
Right.
Yes. So historically, organizational change is very difficult. Our norms, our values are deeply embedded into the organizations, and it affects how we do things, the relationships we have with other stakeholders. One of the biggest ways to disrupt our status quo is to have new leadership. And what the new leadership at the UAW has said very clearly is, this is different. This is not 2008. This is not 2018. This is how we are handling the situation now. And they are moving very clearly and aggressively, and I want to say that's aggressively in a good way, to send their message and illustrate their values.
A final question here for you, Dave, because we are running short on time here. We've seen some comments on the UAW's Facebook page with people who say they're UAW members. It's Facebook, so who knows, who weren't terribly happy with President Biden joining the picket line earlier this week. Obviously, this is another political question, and individual politicians are going to be more popular than others. Is there some work to do there with the union's relationship with the Democratic Party and the president, or is this just a matter of some people just sounding off online?
People are keyboard warriors. I think a lot of folks like to, it's easier to express your feelings through a keyboard, and who knows who's real and who's not on the internet these days. But look, I think Sean's been real clear that we want all of our candidates that we endorse to, show us, right? We've endorsed Republicans in the past, and we've endorsed Democrats. Generally, the Democrats are more supportive of organized labor. We can see what happened with the NLRB when President Biden took office. It's been only favorable for working folks. And it's not just union folks, right? And what we're fighting for is not just union folks. This is a push to raise all ships in the harbor for the working class. And so, is there work to do? I think there's always going to be work to do in the political spectrum, Robert. But it's just making sure our members understand what it is, and again, I like to focus on the issues of workplace and what's happening at work more so than the politicians or a specific party.
Well, thank you both so much for joining us today. This has been Production Pulse. Thank you to David Green, UAW Region 2B Director, and Lynn Vincent with Syracuse University. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.